Illinois is a state in the Midwestern region of the United States. It is the 6th most populous state and 25th largest state in terms of land area, and is often noted as a microcosm of the entire country. With Chicago in the northeast, small industrial cities and great agricultural productivity in central and northern Illinois, and natural resources like coal, timber, and petroleum in the south, Illinois has a diverse economic base and is a major transportation hub. The Port of Chicago connects the state to other global ports from the Great Lakes, via the St. Lawrence Seaway, to the Atlantic Ocean, as well as the Great Lakes to the Mississippi River, via the Illinois Waterway. For decades, O'Hare International Airport has been ranked as one of the world's busiest airports. Illinois has long had a reputation as a bellwether both in social and cultural terms and politics. Although today the state's largest population center is around Chicago in the northeastern part of the state's European population grew first in the west, with French Canadians who settled along the Mississippi River, and gave the area the name Illinois Country. After the American Revolutionary War established the United States, American settlers began arriving from Kentucky in the 1780s via the Ohio River, and the population grew from south to north. In 1818, Illinois achieved statehood. After construction of the Erie Canal increased traffic and trade through the Great Lakes, Chicago was founded in the 1830s on the banks of the Chicago River, at one of the few natural harbors on southern Lake Michigan. John Deere's invention of the self-scouring steel plow turned Illinois' rich prairie into some of the world's most productive and valuable farmland, attracting immigrant farmers from Germany and Sweden. The Illinois and Michigan Canal, 1848, made transportation between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River Valley faster and cheaper. New railroads carried immigrants to new homes, as well as being used to ship commodity crops to eastern markets. The state became a transportation hub for the nation. By 1900, the growth of industrial jobs in the northern cities and coal mining in the central and southern areas attracted immigrants from Eastern and Southern Europe. Illinois was an important manufacturing center during both World Wars. The Great Migration from the South established a large community of African Americans in the state, including Chicago, who created the city's famous jazz and blues cultures. Chicago, the center of the Chicago metropolitan area, became a global alpha-level city. Illinois has shown a strong presence in presidential elections. 3 U.S. presidents have been elected while living in Illinois: Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, and Barack Obama. Additionally, Ronald Reagan, whose political career was based in California, and Hillary Clinton, the first female candidate of a major party in the general election, were both born and raised in Illinois. Today, Illinois honors Lincoln with its official state slogan, Land of Lincoln, which has been displayed on its license plates since 1954. The state is the site of 2 presidential libraries. The Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum is located in the state capital of Springfield, and the Barack Obama Presidential Center in Chicago. Etymology. Illinois is the modern spelling for the early French Catholic missionaries and explorers' name for the Illinois Native Americans, a name that was spelled in many different ways in the early records. American scholars previously thought the name Illinois meant man or men in the Miami, Illinois language, with the original Illiniwek transformed via French into Illinois. This etymology is not supported by the Illinois language, as the word for man is Iriniwa and plural men is Iriniwaki. The name Illiniwek has also been said to mean tribe of superior men, which is a false etymology. The name Illinois derives from the Miami, Illinois verb irenwa, he speaks the regular way. This was taken into the Ojibwe language, perhaps in the Ottawa dialect, and modified into Illinois, pluralized as Illinwike. The French borrowed these forms, changing the /we/ ending to spell it as ois, a transliteration for its pronunciation in French of that time. The current spelling form, Illinois, began to appear in the early 1670s, when French colonists had settled in the western area. The Illinois' name for themselves, as attested in all three of the French missionary period dictionaries of Illinois, was Inoka, of unknown meaning and unrelated to the other terms. History. Pre-European. American Indians of successive cultures lived along the waterways of the Illinois area for thousands of years before the arrival of Europeans. The Coster site has been excavated and demonstrates 7,000 years of continuous habitation. Cahokia, the largest regional chiefdom and urban center of the pre-Columbian Mississippian culture, was located near present-day Collinsville, Illinois. They built an urban complex of more than 100 platform and burial mounds, of 50 acres, 20 ha, plaza larger than 35 football fields and a woodhenge of sacred cedar, all in a planned design expressing the culture's cosmology. Monk's Mound, the center of the site, is the largest pre-Columbian structure north of the Valley of Mexico. It is 100 feet, 30 m, high, 951 feet, 290 m, long, 836 feet, 255 m, wide and covers 13.8 acres, 5.6 ha. It contains about 814,000 cubic yards, 622,000 cubic meters, of earth. It was topped by a structure thought to have measured about 105 feet, 32 m, in length and 48 feet, 15 m, in width, covered an area 5,000 square feet, 460 square meters, and been as much as 50 feet, 15 m, high, making its peak 150 feet, 46 m, above the level of the plaza. The finely crafted ornaments and tools recovered by archaeologists at Cahokia include elaborate ceramics, finely sculptured stonework, carefully embossed and engraved copper and mica sheets, and one funeral blanket for an important chief fashioned from 20,000 shell beads. These artifacts indicate that Cahokia was truly an urban center, with clustered housing, markets, and specialists in tool making, hide dressing, potting, jewelry making, shell engraving, weaving and salt making. The civilization vanished in the 15th century for unknown reasons, but historians and archaeologists have speculated that the people depleted the area of resources. Many indigenous tribes engaged in constant warfare. According to Suzanne Austin Alcon, at one site in the central Illinois River Valley, 1/3 of all adults died as a result of violent injuries. The next major power in the region was the Illinois Confederation or Illini, a political alliance. As the Illini declined during the Beaver Wars era, members of the Algonquian-speaking Potawatomi, Miami, Sauk, and other tribes including the Fox, Meskwaki, Iowa, Kickapoo, Mascoutin, Piankashaw, Shawnee, Wee, and Winnebago, Ho-Chunk, came into the area from the east and north around the Great Lakes. European exploration and settlement prior to 1800. French explorers Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet explored the Illinois River in 1673. Marquette soon after founded a mission at the Grand Village of the Illinois in Illinois country. In 1680, French explorers under René Robert Cavelier, Sieur de la Salle and Henri de Tonty constructed a fort at the site of present-day Peoria, and in 1682, a fort atop Starved Rock in today's Starved Rock State Park. French Empire Canadians came south to settle particularly along the Mississippi River, and Illinois was part of first New France and then of La Louisiana until 1763, when it passed to the British with their defeat of France in the 7 Years' War. The small French settlements continued, although many French migrated west to Ste Genevieve and St. Louis, Missouri to evade British rule. A few British soldiers were posted in Illinois, but few British or American settlers moved there, as the Crown made it part of the territory reserved for Indians west of the Appalachians, and then part of the British province of Quebec. In 1778, George Rogers Clark claimed Illinois County for Virginia. In a compromise, Virginia ceded the area to the new United States in 1783 and it became part of the Northwest Territory, to be administered by the federal government and later organized as states. Connecticut ceded northern Illinois in 1786, see Connecticut Western Reserve. 19th century. Prior to statehood, the Illinois Wabash Company was an early claimant to much of Illinois. The Illinois Territory was created on February 3, 1809, with its capital at Kaskaskia, an early French settlement. During the discussions leading up to Illinois' admission to the Union, the proposed northern boundary of the state was moved twice. The original provisions of the Northwest Ordinance had specified a boundary that would have been tangent to the southern tip of Lake Michigan. Such a boundary would have left Illinois with no shoreline on Lake Michigan at all. However, as Indiana had successfully been granted a 10-mile northern extension of its boundary to provide it with a usable lakefront, the original bill for Illinois statehood, submitted to Congress on January 23, 1818, stipulated a northern border at the same latitude as Indiana's, which is defined as 10 miles, 16 kilometers, north of the southernmost extremity of Lake Michigan. But the Illinois delegate, Nathaniel Pope, wanted more. Pope lobbied to have the boundary moved further north, and the final bill passed by Congress did just that. It included an amendment to shift the border to 42 degrees 30 minutes north, which is approximately 51 miles, 82 kilometers, north of the Indiana northern border. This shift added 8,500 square miles, 22,000 square kilometers, to the state, including the lead mining region near Galena. More importantly, it added nearly 50 miles of Lake Michigan shoreline and the Chicago River. Pope and others envisioned a canal that would connect the Chicago and Illinois rivers, and thus, connect the Great Lakes to the Mississippi. The state of Illinois prior to the Civil War. In 1818, Illinois became the 21st U.S. state. The capital remained at Kaskaskia, headquartered in a small building rented by the state. In 1819, Vandalia became the capital, and over the next 18 years, 3 separate buildings were built to serve successively as the Capitol building. In 1837, the state legislators representing Sangamon County, under the leadership of State Representative Abraham Lincoln, succeeded in having the capital moved to Springfield, where a 5th Capitol building was constructed. A 6th Capitol building was erected in 1867, which continues to serve as the Illinois Capitol today. Though it was ostensibly a free state, there was slavery in Illinois. The ethnic French had owned black slaves since the 1720s, and American settlers had already brought slaves into the area from Kentucky. Slavery was nominally banned by the Northwest Ordinance, but that was not enforced for those already holding slaves. When Illinois became a sovereign state in 1818, the ordinance no longer applied, and about 900 slaves were held in the state. As the southern part of the state, later known as Egypt or Little Egypt, was largely settled by migrants from the south, the section was hostile to free blacks. Settlers were allowed to bring slaves with them for labor but, in 1822, state residents voted against making slavery legal. Still, most residents opposed allowing free blacks as permanent residents. Some settlers brought in slaves seasonally or as house servants. The Illinois Constitution of 1848 was written with a provision for exclusionary laws to be passed. In 1853, John A. Logan helped pass a law to prohibit all African Americans, including freedmen, from settling in the state. In 1832, the Black Hawk War was fought in Illinois and current-day Wisconsin between the United States and the Sauk, Fox, Meskwaki, and Kickapoo Indian tribes. It represents the end of Indian resistance to white settlement in the Chicago region. The Indians had been forced to leave their homes and move to Iowa in 1831. When they attempted to return, they were attacked and eventually defeated by U.S. militia. The survivors were forced back to Iowa. The winter of 1830-1831 is called the Winter of the Deep Snow. A sudden, deep snowfall blanketed the state, making travel impossible for the rest of the winter, and many travelers perished. Several severe winters followed, including the Winter of the Sudden Freeze. On December 20, 1836, a fast-moving cold front passed through, freezing puddles in minutes and killing many travelers who could not reach shelter. The adverse weather resulted in crop failures in the northern part of the state. The southern part of the state shipped food north, and this may have contributed to its name, Little Egypt, after the biblical story of Joseph in Egypt supplying grain to his brothers. By 1839, the Latter-day Saints had founded a utopian city called Nauvoo. Located in Hancock County along the Mississippi River, Nauvoo flourished and soon rivaled Chicago for the position of the state's largest city. But in 1844, the Latter-day Saint movement founder Joseph Smith was killed in the Carthage jail, about 30 miles away from Nauvoo. Following a succession crisis, Latter-day Saints, Brigham Young led most Latter-day Saints out of Illinois in a mass exodus to present-day Utah. After close to 6 years of rapid development, Nauvoo rapidly declined afterward. Chicago gained prominence as a Great Lakes port and then as an Illinois and Michigan Canal port after 1848, and as a rail hub soon afterward. By 1857, Chicago was Illinois' largest city. With the tremendous growth of mines and factories in the state in the 19th century, Illinois was the ground for the formation of labor unions in the United States. In 1847, after lobbying by Dorothea L. Dix, Illinois became one of the first states to establish a system of state-supported treatment of mental illness and disabilities, replacing local almshouses. Dix came into this effort after having met J.O. King, a Jacksonville, Illinois businessman, who invited her to Illinois where he had been working to build an asylum for the insane. With the lobbying expertise of Dix, plans for the Jacksonville State Hospital, now known as the Jacksonville Developmental Center, were signed into law on March 1, 1847. Civil War and after. During the American Civil War, Illinois ranked fourth in men who served, more than 250,000, in the Union Army, a figure surpassed by only New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Beginning with President Abraham Lincoln's first call for troops and continuing throughout the war, Illinois mustered 150 infantry regiments, which were numbered from the 7th to the 156th regiments. 17 cavalry regiments were also gathered, as well as 2 light artillery regiments. The town of Cairo, at the southern tip of the state at the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, served as a strategically important supply base and training center for the Union Army. For several months, both General Grant and Admiral Foote had headquarters in Cairo. During the Civil War, and more so afterwards, Chicago's population skyrocketed, which increased its prominence. The Pullman strike and Haymarket riot, in particular, greatly influenced the development of the American labor movement. From Sunday, October 8, 1871, until Tuesday, October 10, 1871, the Great Chicago Fire burned in downtown Chicago, destroying 4 square miles, 10 square kilometers. 20th century. At the turn of the 20th century, Illinois had a population of nearly 5 million. Many people from other parts of the country were attracted to the state by employment caused by the then expanding industrial base. Whites were 98% of the state's population. Bolstered by continued immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe, and by the African American Great Migration from the South, Illinois grew and emerged as one of the most important states in the Union. By the end of the century, the population had reached 12.4 million. The Century of Progress World's Fair was held at Chicago in 1933. Oil strikes in Marion County and Crawford County led to a boom in 1937, and by 1939, Illinois ranked fourth in U.S. oil production. Illinois manufactured 6.1% of total United States military armaments produced during World War II, ranking seventh among the 48 states. Chicago became an ocean port with the opening of the St. Lawrence Seaway in 1959. The Seaway and the Illinois Waterway connected Chicago to both the Mississippi River and the Atlantic Ocean. In 1960, Ray Kroc opened the first McDonald's franchise in Des Plaines, which still exists as a museum, with a working McDonald's across the street. Illinois had a prominent role in the emergence of the nuclear age. In 1942, as part of the Manhattan Project, the University of Chicago conducted the first sustained nuclear chain reaction. In 1957, Argonne National Laboratory, near Chicago, activated the first experimental nuclear power generating system in the United States. By 1960, the first privately financed nuclear plant in the United States, Dresden 1, was dedicated near Morris. In 1967, Fermilab, a national nuclear research facility near Batavia, opened a particle accelerator, which was the world's largest for over 40 years. With 11 plants currently operating, Illinois leads all states in the amount of electricity generated from nuclear power. In 1961, Illinois became the first state in the nation to adopt the recommendation of the American Law Institute and pass a comprehensive criminal code revision that repealed the law against sodomy. The code also abrogated common law crimes and established an age of consent of 18. The state's fourth constitution was adopted in 1970, replacing the 1870 document. The first Farm Aid concert was held in Champaign to benefit American farmers, in 1985. The worst upper Mississippi River flood of the century, the Great Flood of 1993, inundated many towns and thousands of acres of farmland. Geography. Though Illinois lies entirely in the interior plains, it does have some minor variation in its elevation. In extreme northwestern Illinois, the driftless area, a region of unglaciated and therefore higher and more rugged topography, occupies a small part of the state. Charles Mound, located in this region, has the state's highest elevation above sea level at 1,235 feet, 376 m. Other highlands include the Shawnee Hills in the south, and there is varying topography along its rivers. The Illinois River bisects the state northeast to southwest. The floodplain on the Mississippi River from Alton to the Kaskaskia River is known as the American Bottom. Divisions. Illinois has three major geographical divisions. Northern Illinois is dominated by Chicagoland, which is the city of Chicago and its suburbs, and the adjoining exurban area into which the metropolis is expanding. As defined by the federal government, the Chicago metro area includes several counties in Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin, and has a population of over 9.8 million people. Chicago itself is a cosmopolitan city, densely populated, industrialized, and the transportation hub of the nation, and settled by a wide variety of ethnic groups. The city of Rockford, Illinois' third-largest city and center of the state's fourth-largest metropolitan area, sits along Interstates 39 and 90 some 75 miles, 121 kilometers, northwest of Chicago. The Quad Cities region, located along the Mississippi River in northern Illinois, had a population of 381,342 in 2011. The midsection of Illinois is a second major division, called Central Illinois. It is an area of mainly prairie and known as the heart of Illinois. It is characterized by small towns and medium-small cities. The western section, west of the Illinois River, was originally part of the military tract of 1812 and forms the conspicuous western bulge of the state. Agriculture, particularly corn and soybeans, as well as educational institutions and manufacturing centers, figure prominently in central Illinois. Cities include Peoria, Springfield, the state capital, Quincy, Decatur, Bloomington-Normal, and Champaign-Urbana. The third division is Southern Illinois, comprising the area south of U.S. Route 50, including Little Egypt, near the juncture of the Mississippi River and Ohio River. Southern Illinois is the site of the ancient city of Cahokia, as well as the site of the first state capital at Kaskaskia, which today is separated from the rest of the state by the Mississippi River. This region has a somewhat warmer winter climate, different variety of crops, including some cotton farming in the past, more rugged topography, due to the area remaining unglaciated during the Illinoisan stage, unlike most of the rest of the state, as well as small-scale oil deposits and coal mining. The Illinois suburbs of St. Louis, such as East St. Louis, are located in this region, and collectively they are known as the Metro East. The other somewhat significant concentration of population in southern Illinois is the Carbondale-Marion-Herrin, Illinois Combined Statistical Area centered on Carbondale and Marion, a two-county area that is home to 123,272 residents. A portion of southeastern Illinois is part of the extended Evansville, Indiana metro area, locally referred to as the Tri-State with Indiana and Kentucky. 7 Illinois counties are in the area. In addition to these 3, largely latitudinally defined divisions, all of the region outside the Chicago metropolitan area is often called downstate Illinois. This term is flexible, but is generally meant to mean everything outside the Chicago area. Thus, some cities in northern Illinois, such as DeKalb, which is west of Chicago, and Rockford, which is actually north of Chicago, are considered to be downstate. Climate. Illinois has a climate that varies widely throughout the year. Because of its nearly 400-mile distance between its northernmost and southernmost extremes, as well as its mid-continental situation, most of Illinois has a humid continental climate, Köppen climate classification DFA, with hot, humid summers and cold winters. The southern part of the state, from about Carbondale southward, has a humid subtropical climate, Köppen CFA, with more moderate winters. Average yearly precipitation for Illinois varies from just over 48 inches, 1,219 millimeters, at the southern tip to around 35 inches, 889 millimeters, in the northern portion of the state. Normal annual snowfall exceeds 38 inches, 965 millimeters, in the Chicago area, while the southern portion of the state normally receives less than 14 inches, 356 millimeters. The all-time high temperature was 117 degrees Fahrenheit, 47 degrees Celsius, recorded on July 14, 1954, at East St. Louis, while the all-time low temperature was 36 degrees F, 38 degrees C, recorded on January 5, 1999, at Congerville. A temperature of 37 degrees F, 39 degrees C, was recorded on January 15, 2009, at Rochelle. Illinois averages approximately 51 days of thunderstorm activity a year, which ranks somewhat above average in the number of thunderstorm days for the United States. Illinois is vulnerable to tornadoes with an average of 35 occurring annually, which puts much of the state at around 5 tornadoes per 10,000 square miles, 30,000 square kilometers, annually. While tornadoes are no more powerful in Illinois than other states, some of Tornado Alley's deadliest tornadoes on record have occurred in the state. The tri-state tornado of 1925 killed 695 people in 3 states, 613 of the victims died in Illinois. Other significant high-casualty tornadoes include the 1896 St. Louis East St. Louis tornado, which killed 111 people in East St. Louis, and a May 1917 tornado that killed 101 people in Charleston and Mattoon. Modern developments in storm forecasting and tracking have caused death tolls from tornadoes to decline dramatically, with the 1967 Belvidere Oak Lawn tornado outbreak, 58 fatalities, and 1990 Plainfield tornado, 29 fatalities, standing out as exceptions. On November 17, 2013, an EF4 tornado touched down and ripped through Washington, Illinois. There were 3 fatalities. Demographics. The United States Census Bureau estimates that the population of Illinois was 12,802,023 in 2017, moving from the 5th largest state to the 6th largest state, losing out to Pennsylvania. Illinois' population declined by 33,700 people from July 2016 to July 2017, making it the worst decline of any state in the U.S. in raw terms. Illinois is the most populous state in the Midwest region. Chicago, the 3rd most populous city in the United States, is the center of the Chicago metropolitan area. Chicagoland, as this area is known locally, comprises only 8% of the land area of the state, but contains 65% of the state's residents. According to the 2010 census, the racial composition of the state was 71.5% white American, 63.7% non-Hispanic white, 7.8% white Hispanic, 14.5% Black or African American, 0.3% American Indian and Alaska Native, 4.6% Asian American, 2.3% multiracial American, 6.8% some other race. In the same year, 15.8% of the total population was of Hispanic or Latino origin, they may be of any race. The state's most populous ethnic group, non-Hispanic white, has declined from 83.5% in 1970 to 63.3% in 2011. As of 2011, 49.4% of Illinois' population younger than age 1 were minorities. Note, children born to white Hispanics are counted as minority group. At the 2007 estimates from the U.S. Census Bureau, there were 1,768,518 foreign-born inhabitants of the state, or 13.8% of the population, with 48.4% from Latin America, 24.6% from Asia, 22.8% from Europe, 2.9% from Africa, 1.2% from Northern America and 0.2% from Oceania. Of the foreign-born population, 43.7% were naturalized U.S. citizens and 56.3% were not U.S. citizens. In 2007, 6.9% of Illinois' population was reported as being under age 5, 24.9% under age 18 and 12.1% were age 65 and over. Females made up approximately 50.7% of the population. According to the 2007 estimates, 21.1% of the population had German ancestry, 13.3% had Irish ancestry, 8% had British ancestry, 7.9% had Polish ancestry, 6.4% had Italian ancestry, 4.6% listed themselves as American, 2.4% had Swedish ancestry, 2.2% had French ancestry, other than Basque, 1.6% had Dutch ancestry, and 1.4% had Norwegian ancestry. Illinois also has large numbers of African Americans and Latinos, mostly Mexicans and Puerto Ricans. Chicago, along the shores of Lake Michigan, is the nation's third largest city. In 2000, 23.3% of Illinois' population lived in the city of Chicago, 43.3% in Cook County, and 65.6% in the counties of the Chicago metropolitan area, Will, DuPage, Kane, Lake, and McHenry counties, as well as Cook County. The remaining population lives in the smaller cities and rural areas that dot the state's plains. As of 2000, the state's center of population was at 41.278216 degrees north, 88.380238 degrees west, located in Grundy County, northeast of the village of Mason. Urban areas. Chicago is the largest city in the state and the third most populous city in the United States, with its 2010 population of 2,695,598. The U.S. Census Bureau currently lists 7 other cities with populations of over 100,000 within Illinois. Based upon the Census Bureau's official 2010 population, Aurora, a Chicago satellite town that eclipsed Rockford for the title of second most populous city in Illinois, its 2010 population was 197,899. Rockford, at 152,871, is the third largest city in the state, and is the largest city in the state not located within the Chicago suburbs. Joliet, located in metropolitan Chicago, is the fourth largest city in the state, with a population of 147,433. Naperville, a suburb of Chicago, is fifth with 141,853. Naperville and Aurora share a boundary along Illinois Route 59. Springfield, the state's capital, comes in as sixth most populous with 117,352 residents. Peoria, which decades ago was the second most populous city in the state, is seventh with 115,007. The eighth largest and final city in the 100,000 club is Elgin, a northwest suburb of Chicago, with a 2010 population of 108,188. The most populated city in the state south of Springfield is Belleville, with 44,478 people at the 2010 census. It is located in the Illinois portion of Greater St. Louis, often called the Metro East area, which has a rapidly growing population of over 700,000 people. Other major urban areas include the Champaign-Urbana metropolitan area, which has a combined population of almost 230,000 people, the Illinois portion of the Quad Cities area with about 215,000 people, and the Bloomington-Normal area with a combined population of over 165,000. Languages. The official language of Illinois is English, although between 1923 and 1969 state law gave official status to the American language. Nearly 80% of people in Illinois speak English natively, and most of the rest speak it fluently as a second language. A number of dialects of American English are spoken, ranging from inland Northern American English and African American English around Chicago, to Midland American English in central Illinois to Southern American English in the far south. Over 20% of Illinoisans speak a language other than English at home, of which Spanish is by far the most widespread at more than 12% of the total population. A sizable number of Polish speakers is present in the Chicago metropolitan area. Religion. Christianity. Roman Catholics constitute the single largest religious denomination in Illinois. They are heavily concentrated in and around Chicago, and account for nearly 30% of the state's population. However, taken together as a group, the various Protestant denominations comprise a greater percentage of the state's population than do Catholics. In 2010, Chicago include the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the Lyric Opera of Chicago and the Chicago Sinfonietta. Sports. Major League Sports. As one of the United States' major metropolises, all major sports leagues have teams headquartered in Chicago. 2 Major League Baseball teams are located in the state. The Chicago Cubs of the National League play in the second oldest Major League stadium, Wrigley Field, and are widely known for having the longest championship drought in all of major American sport, not winning the World Series since 1908. That drought finally came to an end when the Cubs beat the Cleveland Indians in 7 games to win the 2016 World Series. The Chicago White Sox of the American League won the World Series in 2005, their first since 1917. They play on the city's south side at Guaranteed Rate Field. The Chicago Bears football team has won 9 total NFL championships, the last occurring in Super Bowl XX on January 26, 1986. The Chicago Bulls of the NBA is one of the most recognized basketball teams in the world, due largely to the efforts of Michael Jordan, who led the team to 6 NBA championships in 8 seasons in the 1990s. The Chicago Blackhawks of the NHL began playing in 1926 as a member of the original 6 and have won 6 Stanley Cups, most recently in 2015. The Chicago Fire Soccer Club is a member of MLS and has been one of the league's most successful and best-supported clubs since its founding in 1997, winning 1 league and 4 Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cups in that time span. The Chicago Sky of the Women's National Basketball Association, a franchise in the Pro League since 2006. Minor league sports. Many minor league teams also call Illinois their home. They include the Bloomington Edge of the Indoor Football League, the Bloomington Flex of the Midwest Professional Basketball Association, the Chicago Bandits of the NPF, a female softball league, won first title in 2008. The Chicago Red Stars of the NWSL, previously of Women's Professional Soccer League, WPS, and Women's Premier Soccer League, WPSL. The Chicago Wolves are an AL team. The Gateway Grizzlies of the Frontier League in Sauchi, Illinois. The Kane County Cougars of the Midwest League. The Normal Corn Belters of the Frontier League. The Joliet Slammers of the Frontier League. The Peoria Chiefs of the Midwest League. The Peoria Rivermen are an SPHL team. The Rockford Aviators of the Frontier League. The Rockford IceHogs are an AL team. The Schaumburg Boomers of the Frontier League. The Southern Illinois Miners based out of Marion in the Frontier League. The Windy City Bulls of the NBA G League. College sports. The state features 13 athletic programs that compete in NCAA Division I, the highest level of U.S. college sports. The 2 most prominent are the Illinois Fighting Illini and Northwestern Wildcats, both members of the Big Ten Conference and the only ones competing in one of the so-called Power 5 conferences. The Fighting Illini football team has won 5 national championships and 3 Rose Bowl games, whereas the men's basketball team has won 17 conference seasons and played 5 Final Fours. Meanwhile, the Wildcats have won 8 football conference championships and 1 Rose Bowl game. The Northern Illinois Huskies from DeKalb, Illinois compete in the Mid-American Conference, winning 4 conference championships and earning a bid in the Orange Bowl along with producing Heisman candidate Jordan Lynch at quarterback. The Huskies are the state's only other team competing in the Football Bowl subdivision, the top level of NCAA football. 4 schools have football programs that compete in the second level of Division I football, the Football Championship subdivision. The Illinois State Redbirds, Normal, adjacent to Bloomington, and Southern Illinois Salukis, the latter representing Southern Illinois University's main campus in Carbondale, are members of the Missouri Valley Conference, MVC, for non-football sports and the Missouri Valley Football Conference, MVFC. The Western Illinois Leathernecks, Macomb, are full members of the Summit League, which does not sponsor football, and also compete in the MVFC. The Eastern Illinois Panthers, Charleston, are members of the Ohio Valley Conference, OVC. The city of Chicago is home to 4 Division I programs that do not sponsor football. The DePaul Blue Demons, with main campuses in Lincoln Park and the Loop, are members of the Big East Conference. The Loyola Ramblers, with their main campus straddling the Edgewater and Rogers Park community areas on the city's far north side, compete in the MVC. The Uick Flames, from the near west side next to the Loop, are in the Horizon League. The Chicago State Cougars, from the city's south side, compete in the Western Athletic Conference. Finally, 2 non-football Division I programs are located downstate. The Bradley Braves, Peoria, are MVC members, and the Sue Edwardsville Cougars, in the Metro East region across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, compete in the OVC. Former Chicago sports franchises. Folded teams. The city was formerly home to several other teams that either failed to survive, or that belonged to leagues that folded. The Chicago Blitz, United States Football League 1983-84. The Chicago Sting, North American Soccer League 1975-84 and Major Indoor Soccer League. The Chicago Cougars, World Hockey Association 1972-75. The Chicago Rockers, Continental Basketball Association. The Chicago Skyliners, American Basketball Association 2001. The Chicago Bruisers, Arena Football League 1987-1989. The Chicago Power, National Professional Soccer League 1984-2001. The Chicago Blaze, National Women's Basketball League. The Chicago Machine, Major League Lacrosse. The Chicago Whales of the Federal Baseball League, a rival league to Major League Baseball from 1914 to 1916. The Chicago American Giants of the Negro Baseball League, 1910-1952. The Chicago Bruins of the National Basketball League, 1939-42. The Chicago Studebaker Flyers of the NBL, 1942-43. The Chicago American Gears of the NBL, 1944-47. The Chicago Stags of the Basketball Association of America, 1946-50. The Chicago Majors of the American Basketball League, 1961-63. The Chicago Express of the ECHL. The Chicago Enforcers of the XFL Pro Football League. The Chicago Fire, World Football League 1974. The Chicago Wines, World Football League 1975. The Chicago Hustle, Women's Professional Basketball League 1978-81. The Chicago Mustangs, North American Soccer League 1966-67. The Chicago Storm, Ultimate Soccer League 2004-05. The Chicago Rush, Arena Football League 2001-13. Relocated teams. The NFL's Arizona Cardinals, who currently play in the Phoenix suburb of Glendale, Arizona, played in Chicago as the Chicago Cardinals, until moving to St. Louis, Missouri after the 1959 season. An NBA expansion team known as the Chicago Packers in 1961-62 and the Chicago Zephyrs the following year moved to Baltimore after the 1962-63 season. The franchise is now known as the Washington Wizards. Professional sports teams outside Chicago. The Peoria Chiefs and Kane County Cougars are minor league baseball teams affiliated with MLB. The Schaumburg Boomers and Lake County Fielders are members of the North American League, and the Southern Illinois Miners, Gateway Grizzlies, Joliet Slammers, Windy City Thunderbolts and Normal Corn Belters belong to the Frontier League. In addition to the Chicago Wolves, the AL also has the Rockford IceHogs serving as the AL affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. The second incarnation of the Peoria Rivermen plays in the SPHL. Motor Racing. Motor racing oval tracks at the Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, the Chicago Motor Speedway in Cicero and the Gateway International Raceway in Madison, near St. Louis, have hosted NASCAR, kart, and IRL races, whereas the Sports Car Club of America, among other national and regional road racing clubs, have visited the Autobahn Country Club in Joliet, the Blackhawk Farms Raceway in South Beloit and the former Meadowdale International Raceway in Carpentersville. Illinois also has several short tracks and drag strips. The drag strip at Gateway International Raceway and the Route 66 Raceway, which sits on the same property as the Chicagoland Speedway, both host NHRA drag races. Golf. Illinois features several golf courses such as Olympia Fields, Medina, Midlothian, Cog Hill, and Conway Farms, which have often hosted the BMW Championship, Western Open, and Women's Western Open. Also, the state has hosted 13 editions of the U.S. Open, latest at Olympia Fields in 2003, 6 editions of the PGA Championship, latest at Medina in 2006, 3 editions of the U.S. Women's Open, latest at the Merritt Club, the 2009 Solheim Cup, at Rich Harvest Farms, and the 2012 Ryder Cup, at Medina. The John Deere Classic is a regular PGA Tour event played in the Quad Cities since 1971, whereas the Encompass Championship is a Champions Tour event since 2013. Previously, the LPGA State Farm Classic was an LPGA Tour event from 1976 to 2011. Parks and Recreation. The Illinois State Parks system began in 1908 with what is now Fort Massac State Park, becoming the first park in a system encompassing over 60 parks and about the same number of recreational and wildlife areas. Areas under the protection and control of the National Park Service include the Illinois and Michigan Canal National Heritage Corridor near Lockport, the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, the Lincoln Home National Historic Site in Springfield, the Mormon Pioneer National Historic Trail, the Trail of Tears National Historic Trail, the American Discovery Trail, and the Pullman National Monument. The federal government also manages the Shawnee National Forest and the Midwin National Tallgrass Prairie. Law and Government. The government of Illinois, under the Constitution of Illinois, has 3 branches of government: executive, legislative and judicial. The executive branch is split into several statewide elected offices, with the governor as chief executive. Legislative functions are granted to the Illinois General Assembly. The judiciary is composed of the Supreme Court and lower courts. The Illinois General Assembly is the state legislature, composed of the 118-member Illinois House of Representatives and the 59-member Illinois Senate. The members of the General Assembly are elected at the beginning of each even-numbered year. The Illinois Compiled Statutes, ILCS, are the codified statutes of a general and permanent nature. The executive branch is composed of 6 elected officers and their offices as well as numerous other departments. The 6 elected officers are Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Controller, and Treasurer. The government of Illinois has numerous departments, agencies, boards, and commissions, but the so-called code departments provide most of the state's services. The Judiciary of Illinois is the unified court system of Illinois. It consists of the Supreme Court, Appellate Court, and Circuit Courts. The Supreme Court oversees the administration of the court system. The administrative divisions of Illinois are counties, townships, precincts, cities, towns, villages, and special purpose districts. The basic subdivision of Illinois are the 102 counties. 85 of the 102 counties are in turn divided into townships and precincts. Municipal governments are the cities, villages, and incorporated towns. Some localities possess home rule, which allows them to govern themselves to a certain extent. Politics. Party balance. Illinois is a Democratic stronghold and considered one of the most democratic states in the nation. Historically, Illinois was a political swing state, with near parity existing between the Republican and the Democratic parties. However, in recent elections, the Democratic Party has gained ground and Illinois has come to be seen as a solid blue state in presidential contests. Chicago and most of Cook County votes have long been strongly Democratic. However, the collar counties, the suburbs surrounding Chicago's Cook County, Illinois, can be seen as moderate voting districts. College towns like Carbondale, Champaign, and Normal also lean Democratic. Republicans continue to prevail in the outlying Chicago exurban areas, as well as rural northern and central Illinois. Republican support is also strong in southern Illinois, outside the East St. Louis metropolitan area. From 1920 until 1972, the state was carried by the victor of each of these presidential elections' 14 elections. In fact, Illinois was long seen as a national bellwether, supporting the winner in every election in the 20th century except for 1916 and 1976. By contrast, Illinois has trended more toward the Democratic Party and has voted for their presidential candidates in the last 6 elections. In 2000, George W. Bush became the first Republican to win the presidency without carrying Illinois or Vermont. Chicago resident and former President Barack Obama easily won the state's 21 electoral votes in 2008, with 61.9% of the vote. In 2010, incumbent Governor Pat Quinn was re-elected with 47% of the vote, while Republican Mark Kirk was elected to the Senate with 48% of the vote. In 2012, President Obama easily carried Illinois again with 58% to Republican Mitt Romney's 41%. In 2014, Republican Bruce Rauner defeated Governor Quinn 46% to become Illinois' first Republican governor in 12 years when he was sworn in on January 12, 2015, while Democratic Senator Dick Durbin was re-elected with 53% of the vote. In 2016, Hillary Clinton carried Illinois with 55% of the vote and Tammy Duckworth defeated incumbent Mark Kirk 54% to 40%. George W. Bush and Donald Trump are the only Republicans to win the White House without carrying Illinois or Vermont. History of corruption. Politics in the state have been infamous for highly visible corruption cases, as well as for crusading reformers, such as Governors Adlai Stevenson and James R. Thompson. In 2006, former Governor George Ryan was convicted of racketeering and bribery, leading to a 6-1-2-year prison sentence. In 2008, then Governor Rod Blagojevich was served with a criminal complaint on corruption charges, stemming from allegations that he conspired to sell the vacated Senate seat left by President Barack Obama to the highest bidder. Subsequently, on December 7, 2011, Rod Blagojevich was sentenced to 14 years in prison for those charges, as well as perjury while testifying during the case, totaling 18 convictions. In the late 20th century, Congressman Dan Rostenkowski was imprisoned for mail fraud. Former Governor and federal Judge Otto Kerner, Jr. was imprisoned for bribery. Secretary of State Paul Powell was investigated and found to have gained great wealth through bribes, and State Auditor of Public Accounts, Controller, Orville Hodge was imprisoned for embezzlement. In 1912, William Lorimer, the GOP boss of Chicago, was expelled from the U.S. Senate for bribery, and in 1921, Governor Len Small was found to have defrauded the state of $1 million. U.S. Presidents from Illinois. 3 presidents have claimed Illinois as their political base: Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, and Barack Obama. Lincoln was born in Kentucky, but moved to Illinois at the age of 21. He served in the General Assembly and represented the 7th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives before his election as president. Ulysses S. Grant was born in Ohio and had a military career that precluded settling down, but on the eve of the Civil War, and approaching middle age, Grant moved to Illinois and thus claimed it as his home when running for president. Barack Obama was born and raised in Hawaii, other than a 4-year period of his childhood spent in Indonesia, and made Illinois his home and base after completing law school and later represented the state in the U.S. Senate. Only one person elected President of the United States was actually born in Illinois. Ronald Reagan was born in Tampico, raised in Dixon and educated at Eureka College. Reagan moved to Los Angeles as a young adult and later became governor of California before being elected president. African American U.S. Senators. 9 African Americans have served as members of the United States Senate. 3 of them have represented Illinois, the most of any single state: Carol Moseley Braun, Barack Obama, and Roland Burris, who was appointed to replace Obama after his election to the presidency. Moseley Braun was the first African American woman to become a U.S. Senator. Political families. 2 families from Illinois have played particularly prominent roles in the Democratic Party, gaining both statewide and national fame. Stevensons. The Stevenson family, initially rooted in central Illinois and later based in the Chicago metropolitan area, has provided 4 generations of Illinois office holders. Adlai Stevenson I, 1835–1914, was a Vice President of the United States, as well as a congressman. Louis Stevenson, 1868–1929, son of Adlai, served as Illinois Secretary of State. Adlai Stevenson II, 1900–1965, son of Louis, served as Governor of Illinois and as the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. He was also the Democratic Party's presidential nominee in 1952 and 1956, losing both elections to Dwight Eisenhower. Adlai Stevenson III, 1930, son of Adlai II, served 10 years as a United States Senator. Daleys. The Daley family's power base was in Chicago. Richard J. Daley, 1902–1976, served as mayor of Chicago from 1955 to his death. Richard M. Daley, 1942, son of Richard J., was Chicago's longest-serving mayor, in office from 1989 to 2011. William M. Daley, 1948, another son of Richard J., is a former White House Chief of Staff and has served in a variety of appointed positions. Education. Illinois State Board of Education. The Illinois State Board of Education, ISBE, is autonomous of the governor and the state legislature, and administers public education in the state. Local municipalities and their respective school districts operate individual public schools, but the ISBE audits performance of public schools with the Illinois School Report Card. The ISBE also makes recommendations to state leaders concerning education spending and policies. Primary and secondary schools. Education is compulsory from ages 7 to 17 in Illinois. Schools are commonly but not exclusively divided into 3 tiers of primary and secondary education: elementary school, middle school or junior high school, and high school. District territories are often complex in structure. Many areas in the state are actually located in 2 school districts, one for high school, the other for elementary and middle schools. And such districts do not necessarily share boundaries. A given high school may have several elementary districts that feed into it, yet some of those feeder districts may themselves feed into multiple high school districts. Colleges and universities. Using the criterion established by the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, there are 11 national universities in the state. As of August 19, 2010, 6 of these rank in the first tier, that is, the top quartile, among the top 500 national universities in the United States, as determined by the U.S. News & World Report rankings: the University of Chicago, 4, Northwestern University, 12, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, 41, Loyola University Chicago, 99, the Illinois Institute of Technology, 108, DePaul University, 123, University of Illinois at Chicago, 129, Illinois State University, 149. Southern Illinois University Carbondale, 153, and Northern Illinois University, 194. The University of Chicago is continuously ranked as one of the world's top 10 universities on various independent university rankings, and its Booth School of Business, along with Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, consistently rank within the top 5 graduate business schools in the country and top 10 in the world. The University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign is often ranked among the best engineering schools in the world and in United States. Illinois also has more than 20 additional accredited 4-year universities, both public and private, and dozens of small liberal arts colleges across the state. Additionally, Illinois supports 49 public community colleges in the Illinois Community College System. Infrastructure. Transportation. Because of its central location and its proximity to the Rust Belt and Grain Belt, Illinois is a national crossroads for air, auto, rail, and truck traffic. Airports. From 1962 until 1998, Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, ORD, was the busiest airport in the world, measured both in terms of total flights and passengers. While it was surpassed by Atlanta's Hartsfield in 1998, with 59.3 million domestic passengers annually, along with 11.4 million international passengers in 2008, O'Hare remains one of the 2 or 3 busiest airports in the world, and some years still ranks number 1 in total flights. It is a major hub for United Airlines and American Airlines, and a major airport expansion project is currently underway. Chicago Midway International Airport, MDW, which had been the busiest airport in the world until supplanted by O'Hare in 1962, is now the secondary airport in the Chicago metropolitan area. For a time in the late 1960s and 1970s, Midway was nearly vacant except for general aviation, but growth in the area, combined with political deadlock over the building of a new major airport in the region, has caused a resurgence for Midway. It is now a major hub for Southwest Airlines, and services many other airlines as well. Midway served 17.3 million domestic and international passengers in 2008. Rail. Illinois has an extensive passenger and freight rail transportation network. Chicago is a national Amtrak hub and in-state passengers are served by Amtrak's Illinois service, featuring the Chicago to Carbondale Illini and Saluki, the Chicago to Quincy Carl Sandburg and Illinois Zephyr, and the Chicago to St. Louis Lincoln service. Currently there is track work on the Chicago-St. Louis line to bring the maximum speed up to 110 miles per hour, 180 kilometers per hour, which would reduce the trip time by an hour and a half. Nearly every North American railway meets at Chicago, making it the largest and most active rail hub in the country. Extensive commuter rail is provided in the city proper and some immediate suburbs by the Chicago Transit Authority's L system. The largest suburban commuter rail system in the United States, operated by Metra, uses existing rail lines to provide direct commuter rail access for hundreds of suburbs to the city and beyond. In addition to the state's rail lines, the Mississippi River and Illinois River provide major transportation routes for the state's agricultural interests. Lake Michigan gives Illinois access to the Atlantic Ocean by way of the St. Lawrence Seaway. Interstate Highway System. Illinois is among many U.S. states with a well-developed interstate highway system. Illinois has the distinction of having the most primary, two-digit, interstates pass through it among all the 50 states with 13, with the new addition of Interstate 41 near Wisconsin, as well as the third most interstate mileage behind California and Texas. Major U.S. interstate highways crossing the state include Interstate 24, I-24, I-39, I-41, I-55, I-57, I-64, I-70, I-72, I-74, I-80, I-88, I-90, and I-94. U.S. Highway System. Among the U.S. highways that pass through the state, the primary ones are US 6, US 12, US 14, US 20, US 24, US 30, US 34, US 36, US 40, US 41, US 45, US 50, US 51, US 52, US 54, US 60, US 62, and US 67.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.